Hey everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us. Today we've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. Ethan and Rachel, once close friends from school, had grown up together, their bond stronger than ever. As the years passed, Ethan fell deeply in love with Rachel, and despite her passion for becoming a police officer, Ethan followed her lead, training alongside her to join the force. Eventually, they were both fortunate enough to land positions at the same police station. Their shared journey became even more significant when Ethan proposed to Rachel after celebrating their achievements with family and friends. She said yes, and they were soon married, settling into a peaceful life together. Rachel's determination to succeed in her role as a police officer never wavered. She threw herself into her work, solving cases with remarkable skill and commitment. One day, however, everything changed. Rachel was transferred to another station, located in the opposite direction from Ethan's, though not too far from their home. Although Ethan wasn't thrilled about the change, he respected her dedication to her job. Days passed and they both focused on their careers. Then one day, a new officer, a massive man with a commanding presence, joined Rachel's station. He was her new superior, and they soon began talking more frequently, their relationship growing more friendly over time. But then, Rachel discovered a dark truth. The officer was involved in taking bribes for a serious crime, a murder. When she attempted to report it to her husband, Ethan advised against it, but Rachel decided that she had to act on her own conscience. The situation became more dangerous when the corrupt officer threatened her life. One evening, after she had tried to report him, he blocked her car on a dark road, warning her that continuing down this path would cost her husband's life. Terrified, Rachel confided in Ethan about the threat. Ethan, desperate to protect her, urged her to leave her job. The next day, Rachel resigned and embraced a new, quieter life at home, away from the dangers of her career. As the months passed, Rachel became pregnant, and they began planning for the future. However, the past was not so easily forgotten. One day, after visiting her gynecologist, Rachel saw the corrupt officer staring at her from across the street. His presence lingered in her mind, and she began noticing him more and more. When she informed Ethan, he investigated the officer's background, only to discover that he had been suspended for taking bribes. But this revelation brought a chilling realization. The officer had been following and stalking Rachel. The next day, Rachel screamed as the corrupt officer appeared at their home. Ethan, enraged, rushed back, only to find his wife lying unconscious on the kitchen floor. The officer had taken his vengeance. Ethan, in shock and pain, vowed to uncover why this man had taken his wife's life. As he planned his next steps, he knew he had to stay within the law, but his grief and rage made it nearly impossible to control his emotions. The first thing he did was gather information on the officer. He learned that the officer had been a part of a network involved in several criminal activities, and that his downfall began when Rachel had caught him red-handed taking bribes. With the officer now dead, Ethan focused on finding out what had driven him to murder Rachel. He wanted justice, but not in the way most people would expect. Ethan wasn't just looking to expose the officer's wrongdoings. He wanted the truth. Why had the officer targeted Rachel, and why had he followed her so obsessively? The pieces of the puzzle slowly started to fit together, revealing a dark and twisted reality. Ethan, determined to find answers, tracked down the officer's former colleagues, friends, and family members. Each conversation revealed more about the officer's troubled past, his obsession with Rachel, and his desire for revenge against anyone who posed a threat to his criminal activities. It was clear now that Rachel had been a target not because of anything she had done wrong, but because she had caught him in the act and had the courage to stand against him. The investigation led Ethan to a confrontation with the officer's associates. He needed to know the full extent of the officer's criminal empire, and he would stop at nothing to find the truth. However, time was running out. Ethan knew that if he didn't act fast, he might lose the chance to bring justice for Rachel's death. Chapter 3. Ethan's search for the truth took him deep into the criminal underworld, but he remained calm and methodical. His first step was to track down one of the officer's former partners in crime. Ethan had learned that this man knew about the officer's dealings and could provide the key to unlocking the mystery. He contacted the man and arranged to meet in a secluded location. The meeting was tense. Ethan had done his homework, and he knew the man was just as dangerous as the corrupt officer had been. Still, he had no choice but to confront him. Ethan asked direct questions, pushing the man for answers about the officer's past, his connections, and his motives. The more Ethan pressed, the more the man revealed. Through their conversation, Ethan learned about the officer's troubled upbringing, the events that led him down a dark path, and the intense jealousy and rage he had felt toward anyone who stood in his way. The officer had been a man obsessed with power, and when Rachel had exposed his wrongdoings, he had targeted her as part of his plan to regain control over his shattered reputation. Ethan could feel his anger rising, but he remained composed. This was his only lead, and he couldn't afford to make a mistake. As Ethan left the meeting, the pieces of the puzzle started to fall into place. He understood the officer's motivations better now, and he could finally begin to devise a plan for bringing those responsible for Rachel's death to justice. With new information in hand, Ethan continued to investigate the officer's criminal network. He knew he had to be careful. Any misstep could lead to his own demise. He made contact with more of the officer's associates, always staying one step ahead of them. The deeper he went, the more he realized how far-reaching the officer's influence had been. It was clear that Rachel had been just one of many victims. Ethan's mind raced as he thought about his next move. He knew he had to take action quickly, but he also had to be smart. The last thing he wanted was to become a target himself. He contacted Mia, his trusted friend and ally, to help him gather the final pieces of the puzzle. Together, they traced the officer's movements and began to piece together the criminal empire he had been running. It wasn't just about taking bribes. The officer had been involved in a series of violent crimes, all aimed at protecting his corrupt empire. Ethan and Mia worked tirelessly, staying up late into the night, uncovering new leads and following them wherever they took them. Finally, the pieces fell into place. Ethan knew what he had to do next. He had to bring the officer's associates down one by one, taking them off the streets and dismantling the network that had caused so much pain and suffering. But in the back of his mind, Ethan couldn't stop thinking about Rachel. He was doing this for her, and nothing would stop him from achieving justice. The final confrontation was drawing near. Ethan had tracked down the last remaining members of the officer's network, and he knew the time had come to act. But before he could make his move, he received an unexpected call. It was from one of the officer's former colleagues. Ethan had been waiting for this call, and he knew it was his chance to learn everything he needed to know. The man on the other end of the line sounded nervous, but Ethan's calm demeanor put him at ease. The man had information that would help Ethan bring down the rest of the officer's network, but he wanted a guarantee of his safety. Ethan promised that he would protect him, and the man gave him everything he knew. Ethan wrote down the information, his hand trembling with anticipation. This was it, the final piece of the puzzle. He now had the evidence he needed to take down the officer's empire for good. With Mia by his side, Ethan began making his move. He took out the last of the officer's associates, using the information he had gathered to carefully dismantle the network. Each step brought him closer to the truth, and to the justice he so desperately needed. The final confrontation with the officer's remaining allies was inevitable, and Ethan was ready. He had the evidence, he had the strategy, and he had the strength to see it through. Nothing would stand in his way now. The night was cold and unforgiving, but Ethan was undeterred. The final confrontation had arrived. Armed with the information he had painstakingly gathered over the past months, Ethan and Mia prepared to confront the last of the officer's network. It was time to bring the criminals to justice once and for all. As they approached the final hideout, Ethan's heart raced with a mix of anticipation and fear. This was it, the moment of reckoning. He knew that once he took action, there would be no turning back. But this was for Rachel, and he would stop at nothing to see justice done. With Mia by his side, Ethan stormed the hideout, taking down the remaining criminals one by one. Each confrontation was intense, but Ethan's resolve was unwavering. He couldn't afford to show weakness. This was for his wife and nothing else mattered. As they cleared the hideout, Ethan found himself face to face with the last man, the officer's right-hand man. The man tried to plead for his life, but Ethan wasn't listening. This was the moment he had been waiting for. With a steady hand, he fired the final shot, bringing the criminal empire to an end. The officers who had helped Ethan on this journey arrived just in time to witness the collapse of the officers' network. The corrupt empire was shattered, and justice had been served. But for Ethan, the victory was bittersweet. His wife was gone, and nothing could bring her back. With the last of the criminals taken care of, Ethan stood in silence, knowing that the war was over. But the battle would never truly end for him. As he walked away, he vowed to honor Rachel's memory, ensuring that her bravery and dedication to justice would never be forgotten. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories like this. See you next time.